The dawn shone brightly that morning, yet for Nathan Blake, one of the city's youngest magnates, the glow felt oddly barren. He lingered in his sleek grey car outside the gates of his grand estate, his reflection peering back from the glass. To the world, he was untouchable, a man of authority, wealth, and esteem, but in his soul, a persistent doubt engulfed him. He had been with Isabella, a woman of radiant beauty and prominent social connections, for nearly a year. She was the type of partner everyone expected him to have. Flawless, dazzling, admired at every event. Yet deep inside, Nathan wondered if she loved him or just the riches that surrounded him. So in a bold and almost rash act, he devised a test that would change his path forever. He told Isabella he'd been injured in a car mishap and could no longer walk. He'd use a wheelchair, mask himself in weakness, and watch her reaction keenly. Would she stand by him in the gloom? Or would her affection vanish without the luster of his fortune and charm? It was a stern plan, but one he felt driven to attempt. If you believe in compassion, loyalty, and new beginnings, please pause to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel, TaleHook. Your support helps us share stories that inspire souls globally. The first few days of the trial were grueling. Nathan, dressed in a sharp teal suit, rolled into the opulent halls of his estate with Isabella by his side. At first, she played her role well. She smoothed his hair, promised he was still the man she cherished, and even posed dramatically for her friends' pity on social media. But when the lights faded and the sympathy waned, cracks began to appear. Her laughter turned cutting, her patience thinned, and she started avoiding him under the pretext of gatherings and obligations. Nathan could feel her devotion fading, replaced by irritation and thinly veiled contempt. In the background of this stark scene stood another figure unnoticed by most, but striking to Nathan. Her name was Hazel, a quiet maid who'd served at the estate for only months. She wore a crisp indigo uniform with grace, and carried herself with a dignity that defied her humble role. While Isabella scoffed at Nathan, struggling to reach his water glass, it was Hazel who gently handed it to him. When Isabella declined to push his wheelchair, it was Hazel who guided him through the gardens, her steps steady and her silence calming. Nathan began to see her in a way he'd never seen anyone before. She didn't look at him with pity or admiration for his wealth. She saw him as human, wounded, vulnerable, yet still worthy of respect. In those moments, Nathan felt something stir within him, something he hadn't felt in years. Days turned to weeks, and Isabella's mask dropped completely. She mocked him openly, telling friends he was a shade of the man he once was. One evening, as they met for a lavish gala on the estate's terrace, she laughed loudly, pointing at him as if he were a cruel jest. While her guests joined with nervous chuckles, Nathan sat in silence, his heart tight, his face burning with humiliation. But Hazel, she stood behind his wheelchair, her expression unreadable, her grip firm in the handles. When the laughter rang like poison, she leaned slightly closer, her quiet presence shielding him in a way words never could. For the first time, Nathan realized who truly saw him, who truly cared, and who never needed him to prove anything. That night, long after the gala ended and the glittering guests departed, Nathan stayed awake in his room. He removed the neck brace, placed it on the nightstand, and stared at his reflection once more. He had his answer about Isabella, but a greater question remained. What would he do about Hazel? The next morning, Isabella arrived with her usual air of superiority, her designer heels clicking on the marble floors. She barely glanced at Nathan before stating she had plans with friends. Nathan, his heart heavy, yet oddly free, shared the truth. He stood from the wheelchair, his body strong and firm, and revealed the stern trick he'd played. Isabella's face twisted in shock and fury, her glamorous mask crumbling as she realized the game was over. Without hesitation, she stormed out, muttering curses under her breath, her shallow love exposed as nothing. But Hazel, she was different. She gasped softly when Nathan rose, her hands clutching her apron. For a long moment she said nothing, simply staring at the man who'd pretended to be broken, yet who'd also been broken inside in ways she understood deeply. Nathan expected anger, betrayal, perhaps even scorn. Yet when Hazel finally spoke, her voice was steady and kind. She said she'd always sensed something was amiss. She'd noticed this strength in his arms, the firmness in his legs when he thought no one was watching. But she didn't care about the lie. What mattered was the loneliness she saw in his eyes, the pain behind the wealth, and the humanity no riches could hide. For the first time in years, Nathan felt tears sting his eyes. He confessed that his fear of being unloved for his true self had pushed him to this desperate act. And Hazel, in her quiet way, showed him that love could be simple, selfless, and true. In the weeks that followed, the estate felt transformed. The parties ceased. The shallow laughter faded, and in its place came the sound of birds in the garden, of footsteps on the marble floors that carried purpose instead of vanity. Nathan spent his days not with elites, but in the gentle company of Hazel. She shared stories of her childhood, her struggles and her dreams she never thought someone like him would care about. But he listened, and more importantly, he cared. Their bond grew in silence and small gestures, the way she brewed his morning coffee, the way he helped her carry heavy trays despite his wealth, the way they walked through the rose gardens at dusk. It was not a love born from riches, power, or appearances. It was born from kindness, respect, and the quiet miracle of being seen. Months later, Nathan stood before his reflection again, but this time Theman, staring back, was no longer barren. He was alive, his eyes filled with purpose. And when he turned from the mirror, Hazel was there, her smile soft yet radiant. They didn't need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. They had something far greater: trust, honesty, and a love no fortune could ever buy. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to TaleHook. Every click helps us spread more stories of hope, kindness, and true love.